black people are in a lot of trouble as we approach the 21st century because we refuse to address what happened to us. We are a people who are in big trouble because of a legacy of something which has not yet been addressed. Because when you know yourself, when you know of your contributions in history, when you know of the great things that people have done in the past, looking like you, being like you, then that makes you to know, man, I can do that and then some more. And so one of the components in education must be that intangible thing that everybody refers to called love. The teacher must love the students. You must have a desire as a teacher to want that child to bring out the best in that child. What we find in the Eurocentric curriculum that exists today is that most of the teachers, you can't teach a black child whilst at the same time thinking he's about to steal my handbag. You can't, with these stereotypical views that they have of black youth, you can't teach black children and be frightened of them at the same time because, oh, they're excitable, they gesticulate with their hands. These are the type of things which exist. And so we believe that we need more black teachers to educate black children who have a love for those children, and we believe that you will see a tremendous change in the society, and black people will begin to aspire to much greater things. And if we're allowed to know ourselves and bring out that which is inside of us, because there's genius in the black community, but much of it is stifled on the things which are irrelevant to us. 1066 and the Battle of Waterloo and all this nonsense, that has nothing to do with us.
The audience like to comment on what Minister Mohammed has said.
I do believe that is a lack in the education system at the moment, because I just did a seminar to a predominantly white group of youngsters. While I was preparing, I actually thought it was going to be for a black group of young people, but it didn't matter. Once I got there was one Afro-Caribbean young lady and one Asian young lady in the group, and these were children between the ages of 11 to 13. And we did a historical background of the black presence. We spoke about the black presence in Britain and the contributions to civilization, to the community, and the fact that there were just so many black people here. Since Roman times there have been black influence in Britain, and these children were totally amazed. They were like, "You're joking," And I was, we mentioned things that there was a Roman emperor called Septimus Severus who was here, and put his input, and they were absolutely amazed. And one young lady said to me, "But what about, how can you say that there were so many black people here?" She said, "Adam and Eve were white." So I said, "Who told you that?" I said, "I'm not going to tell you what the colour of Adam and Eve was, but from a scientific point of view, you can't gain more melanin, but you can lose melanin." I said, "So you think about it yourself, and also think about the fact that in Britain, when you started to draw pictures at school, how did you draw your people to look like?" And she said, "Oh, like my mum and dad and the people I saw." I said, "Well, exactly. So if you're living in Britain, you're going to get a Eurocentric view. If you live in Africa, you're going to get an Afrocentric view." But the importance of it was the fact that these young people left and they said, "Come back next year." They said, "We've learnt so much today." They said it was wonderful. And they really enjoyed it because they got a richness of the black culture that they were not aware of. They saw us in a particular role. And I mean, to me, that is a vast something that's really missing from school. I went through school without even knowing that black people fought in the war, that there were Asian people in the war. I didn't have a clue, and I feel robbed and cheated, and I also feel that at the same time my white counterparts are robbed and cheated of the richness of our culture, and it's a case of misinformation.
Having listened further to what has been said, I do think that a lot of emphasis has been placed on the fact of history. History we do not know about because we weren't there. We can only look at the annals of history and read about our people and so forth and about the contribution which they made. Now what we have to understand is, even if we know the history of our people, if the person who is in control of the system in which we're in is ignorant and is not aware of that, and he doesn't need to be aware of the history which we have, that doesn't help us. At the end of the day, our ultimate reality is, I need to eat tomorrow, I need money tomorrow, I need to work, I need shelter, I need a home. And basically what needs to be addressed are those issues. And then, furthermore, how we can orientate ourselves today, because history starts from 2 seconds ago. Our forefathers, whoever they were, didn't sit down and think about their history. It doesn't take time to be. They knew it. It was there already. They were living history, because everything was handed down in succession from father to son and so forth. We don't have that. The line has been broken. So we must create anew ourselves, and we have to start now. And the only way we start, the points you've made and the points you've made, we have to come collectively and do that. By going back and looking at history can help those who have the mind, who have the understanding, who are intelligent. But for those who don't, it cannot help them. It will only succeed in making them more hateful, more resentful of them, not only themselves, but of the society which they live in. And they become completely atrophied. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically, they're no use to anybody, even themselves. And then we do have a major problem, because you have a person who knows the truth of something but cannot do anything about it, you know, and that's dangerous. You know, so for those who can avail of the knowledge which you have to offer, we give them the chance. Those who cannot, we have to help them to be able to facilitate them to be at least have a standing in the society whereby they can fend for themselves and they're not left in the mire, downtrodden somewhere, forgotten. That's what I think is most important. All these other things about history, I think that's very important as well. But that must come later on, when a certain amount of stability is reached.
And one day this week I was able to see Jesus Christ Superstar, 1973 version. Wonderful fashion and all of that. But this was on at 6:15 in the morning. I was then joined by my 6-year-old son at 7, and I had to then spend the rest of the program explaining to him that this is somebody's perception that Jesus is white and blonde, and that the Judas, the individual who played the character of Judas, was portrayed as being black. Now for me to explain this to my 6-year-old in 1998, I found very difficult, and I had to choose whether to switch the program off or to attempt to explain to him. So I don't know if anybody else would like to comment on something as strong, because I felt very strongly about it, because this is how I was brought up 30 odd years ago, and it's still happening today.
The people who are in charge of, in control of the media, are middle class white people. You know, they probably don't see a black person unless they get on the tube with one. You have to understand the oppressor to understand to understand your situation. You must understand the oppressor and understand where he's coming from mentally and psychologically, and then you can do something about it. By complaining, it doesn't help us, because blacks have been in this country 35, 40 years, even more, you know, and things they've changed, but things change with time, very, very slowly. And the thing is, if you apply pressure at the right place and the right time in the right way, then you can institutionalize a larger change. And that's what we have to work on now. We have to refine things, because obviously the techniques we've used before, haven't been as successful as they could be.
I think, again, having listened to my brother, I just wanted to take up one quick point that my sister made earlier on in regard to what is in Africa and what is here in terms of a Afrocentric educational system in Africa. It doesn't exist. The educational system in Africa is also Eurocentric. The educational system throughout the world is Eurocentric. In Jamaica, when the children want to have their marks for their examinations done, they have to be sent to England. This is the reality of the world we live in today, where a man could be on death row in the islands, and in order for him to be alleviated from that sentence of death, the Privy Council of Great Britain or England has to make the decision. So we must appreciate that, this notion that somehow this system is something that, you just work the system and you're going to get to this wonderful place where you're then going to be able to then, at your leisure and for the purposes of recreation, look at history. No. We must understand what it is that empowers people. Knowledge is power. The idea that by giving somebody knowledge you're going to make them go out and start killing people is really a nonsense. The idea, you must appreciate that it's ignorance which causes violence. It's ignorance which causes all of the mayhem that we see today on the planet. I was a very ignorant individual once upon a time, and whilst I was ignorant within the system of this so-called educational process, that's when I was getting up to all my madness. It's since I began to get some education of myself and the knowledge of myself that I'm now able to articulate myself and conduct myself in a civilized manner, thinking about building schools, thinking about having our own clinics, thinking about creating industries where we can make our own clothes, because as a nation of consumers, we are going nowhere fast. We have to become a people who produce something for ourselves, and we have to not shy away from the reality that there is a legacy here that has to be dealt with. And the legacy has destroyed our people. Black people, you know, you got a couple of black people who make it through the system. We get a little bit of money and we buy into the system, and so then we don't want to bite the hand that feeds us, and we think we've made it. You know, we need to look at O.J. Simpson, because he thought he had made it. You need to look at Mike Tyson. He thought he had made it. You look at Michael Jackson, who has given all of these hundreds of millions to charities and trying to help people. But as soon as he went on the Oprah Winfrey Show and said, I'm a black man and I'm proud, for the first time ever, all of a sudden they had him on charges of molesting little children, which was never proven and was a nonsense. But the point I'm trying to make is this. It doesn't matter how much you buy into this system. Unless you're prepared to build a system of your own, unless you're prepared to create something which has a unique and black identity, black people will always, and I agree with you when you talk about these, who controls the media and so on and so forth, but that doesn't mean you give in to that. That doesn't mean you capitulate. That's why you have such stories as David and Goliath in the Bible, because he's trying to tell you that even though you may be small today, you could defeat the monster tomorrow, but you have to have a determination to do these things. You cannot give in or capitulate to the fact that you talk about being 1.something% of the population of 57 million Caucasians in this country. On the planet, we outnumber Caucasians 11 to 1. We're not a minority. We may be a minority here, but we have to look at our family globally. And so we have to appreciate that this mentality of feeding black people, we walk around talking about, I'm a member of the ethnic minority. The word ethnic, when you go to the etymological root of it, means a heathen. We're not heathens. But if you're not knowledgeable about what you're saying, then people feed you this stuff. We run around thinking, I'm a member of an ethnic minority. Once upon a time, as black people, we used to demonstrate because the Caucasian called us Negroes. And we demonstrated because he refused to write Negro with a capital N. And we said we want a big N. But when you go to the root of the word Negro, it comes from the term necro, the Latin root necro, which means something dead or something neutral. Nothing to do with the complexion. But that's how they had us demonstrating for something which is nonsensical and really was a mockery of us. And so we need to appreciate that it's not about, I'm not talking about complaining, moaning and groaning, oh, you know, we've been hard done by. I'm saying that as a people, we must take our destiny into our own hands. As long as you are reliant upon a culture which was never geared for you, it is a pure accident and genius of our nature while we're surviving here today. Because we were supposed to die out during slavery. We were supposed to be totally destroyed, and it's only because of our strength given by God while we happen to be here today. But the point is that now, those of us who are living here now, we would really be insulted. And I don't agree with you, brother, that we forget our people in history. We would be insulting those who died in order that we could be living today by thinking that the black liberation struggle is something of the past. It is just beginning in truth if you understand what's coming in the 21st century. And so we have a duty to our young people to build systems, educational, economic, political, social, all of it. Rebuild it, but based on going back and understanding our great heritage and our wonderful history, not just slavery. Beyond that, we need to do these things.
I agree about